So this recipe inspiration comes from my mom's family. My grandfather was an apple farmer. Every celebration I can remember growing up, there was an apple pie, no matter the time of year. I don't know how that was possible, but it was. My grandma made it pretty much exactly the same every time. She did a very different crust than I did. She was fond of the oil crust, which I think is a sign of the times. So the use of vodka in this crust is what differentiates it from others. Also raises some eyebrows. It really works well to make a light and fluffy crust because a lot of the liquid evaporates because it is alcohol. So to make this recipe, we use a food processor. You start with flour, sugar, and salt. You pulse it a couple of times, get it really evenly incorporated. And then we add our butter and shortening, and you let it run for about 15 seconds. You still want relatively large chunks of butter or shortening. Then we add the remaining flour, which is about a cup, and let it run for 4 to 6 pulses, I would say. So at this point, we would turn our flour mixture into a bowl, drizzle over the vodka and the water, and fold it in using a rubber spatula. You really want to go around the bowl, make sure it's nice and evenly incorporated. We're looking for a tacky consistency at the end of that. At that point, we would divide the dough into 2 pieces and form them into discs that are about maybe a 1/2 inch thick. Wrap it in plastic, stick it in the fridge, and let it sit for 45 minutes to 2 days. You can really do this ahead of time. While the dough is in the fridge, we can make the apple mixture. We need 6 to 7 cups of apples, which is usually gonna be about 6 apples depending on the size and variety. So we peel the apples, thinly slice them, obviously getting rid of the core. Then you toss it with 3 tablespoons of flour, coconut sugar, granulated sugar, nutmeg, cinnamon, a pinch of salt, and the juice of a lemon. Give it a really nice stir and make sure all the flour is evenly incorporated. So to roll out the dough, we start with a clean surface, put a pretty good amount of flour, I would say anywhere from 2 tablespoons to a 1/4 cup on the surface. Spread it out a little bit. Basically just start with your rolling pin, roll it out as evenly as you can, maintaining a circular shape. Kind of helps if you scoot it around in circles a little bit. So we're looking for an 1/8 inch thick, about 12 inches wide. So the process of getting your nicely rolled out pie dough into the pie plate can really be a big challenge for people. And some tips that I've come across just in the amount of pies that I've made is having enough flour on the bottom so you can kind of scoot it around easily. Another thing is not using your hands, actually using your rolling pin to have more leverage as you lift it up and then unroll it onto the pie plate. So once the bottom crust is in place, we fill it with the apple mixture that you've just made, and then follow the same process to roll out the top crust. And this time's a little bit easier with getting the crust onto the top of the pie because you don't have to get it into the crevices. You want about a 1/2 inch of overhang from the bottom crust and the top crust. You can use scissors or a paring knife to trim all the way around the circumference of the pie and make sure that it's relatively even. You tuck under the edges of the pie. You want it to be relatively flush with the edge of the pie plate. It makes a nice lip around the edge, so then when you go and do the fluting or the crimping, it's a lot easier and you have more crust to work with. I tend to go for a more classic look to my pies, so that would entail taking your thumb and index finger of your non-dominant hand and then pressing through the middle with the index finger of your dominant hand. Then you do that all the way around the edge of the pie. And at this point, you're just about done. You just have to cut vent holes. Use a paring knife, cut any design you would like into it. The whole point is as the pie is cooking, steam can be released through these vent holes. So now the pie goes into the oven, 375 degrees, and it should cook for somewhere between 45 and 55 minutes. So after the pie is out of the oven, unfortunately you have to let it sit 25 to 30 minutes. But after that, go ahead, enjoy. Get a scoop of vanilla ice cream.